Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be diving into one of the most dramatic and consequential chapters of modern history, the Scramble for Africa. This was a period when European powers competed fiercely to colonize and control vast parts of the African continent. Between 1880 and 1914, almost the entire continent came under European rule, with devastating consequences for African societies. But why did this happen? What were the driving forces behind this scramble? And what impact did it have on the continent and its people? Stay with me today as I unpack the causes, the events, and the legacy of this pivotal era in world history. Before we get started, remember, if you enjoy this video, don't forget to press the like button below and subscribe to the channel. It means a lot to me and helps me make more videos. Let's get on with the Scramble for Africa. So, the Scramble for Africa refers to the rapid invasion, colonization and division of African territories by European countries during the late 19th century. At the start of this period, only about 10% of Africa was under European control. Most of these areas were coastal trading posts, but by 1914, European powers controlled an astonishing 90% of the continent. Only two nations, Liberia and Ethiopia, remained independent. So why the term scramble? It evokes a frantic, almost chaotic race as European countries rushed to claim as much African territory as they could. Behind this rush were motives that ranged from economic greed to political rivalry and even misguided humanitarianism. So let's have a look at what fueled this frenzy. First and foremost then, the Industrial Revolution in Europe created an insatiable demand for resources, and Africa was rich in these. Additionally, European countries sought new markets where they could sell their manufactured goods, making Africa an attractive target. But it wasn't just about economics. Political rivalries also played a key role. In the 19th century, nationalism was on the rise, and colonies became symbols of power and prestige. To control parts of Africa was to demonstrate dominance on a global stage. For instance, Britain and France often clashed over territories in North and West Africa. Germany, a newly unified power, also wanted its share of the action, leading to fierce competition. Explorers and missionaries contributed to the scramble as well. Figures like David Livingstone and Henry Morton Stanley revealed Africa's vast interior to Europeans. Meanwhile, missionaries sought to spread Christianity and Western values, often believing they were helping African societies advance. Finally, technological advancements made the scramble possible. European armies had advanced weapons such as rifles and machine guns that overwhelmed African resistance. Steamships and railways allowed them to travel deeper into the continent. This combination of factors set the stage for one of history's most infamous meetings, the Berlin Conference. In 1884, European leaders gathered in Berlin to decide how to divide Africa among themselves. The goal was to avoid conflicts between European nations over African territories, but no African representatives were invited. During the conference, the powers agreed on rules for claiming land. A nation had to demonstrate effective control over a territory to officially claim it. This led to a surge in military expeditions as countries rushed to establish their dominance. The outcomes of the Berlin Conference were devastating for Africa. Borders were drawn with no regard for existing African kingdoms, cultures, or ethnic groups. This created artificial divisions that would later fuel tensions and conflict, many of which persist to this day. By the time the scramble ended, Europe had carved up the continent, leaving little room for African autonomy. So the major players in the scramble were Britain, of course. Britain was one of the largest colonizers. Its territory stretched from Egypt in the north to South Africa in the south. The British dream of a Cape to Cairo railway symbolised their ambition to control the continent vertically. They also secured the Suez Canal, a critical trade route to India. France controlled vast parts of West and North Africa, which included Algeria, Senegal and Mali. Their goal was to create an empire stretching across the Sahara Desert. Belgium, under King Leopold II, exploited the Congo Free State. While presented as a humanitarian project, Leopold's rule was brutal, marked by forced labour, violence and the deaths of millions of Congolese. Germany entered the scramble late but still claimed territories in East and Southwest Africa, including modern-day Tanzania and Namibia. And finally, Italy struggled to establish its presence, facing defeat in Ethiopia at the Battle of Adwa in 1896. This Ethiopian victory remains a powerful symbol of African resistance. So what is the impact then? What's the impact of the scramble? The scramble for Africa has left deep scars on the continent. Socially, it disrupted African societies. Traditional kingdoms and tribes were divided by artificial borders, creating tensions between groups that had coexisted for centuries. African customs and traditions were often dismissed or suppressed by colonial rulers. Economically, Africa's wealth was extracted for European profit. Resources like gold, diamonds and rubber were exported, leaving little benefit for local populations. Many Africans were forced into harsh labour systems on plantations or in mines. Culturally, European languages, education systems and religions were imposed on African societies. While some Africans benefited from these changes, they often came at the expense of indigenous traditions. So let's have a look at 3 examples to understand the human cost of colonisation. In the Congo Free State, King Leopold II's exploitation led to millions of deaths. Forced labourers who failed to meet rubber quotas faced horrific punishments, including mutilation. In South Africa, British colonisation clashed with Dutch settlers, or Boers, leading to 2 bloody wars. The discovery of diamonds and gold intensified these conflicts, creating a legacy of exploitation and division. And then there's Ethiopia, one of the few African nations to resist colonisation. At the Battle of Adwa in 1896, Ethiopian forces defeated Italy, securing their independence and inspiring future resistance movements. So, the effects of the scramble are still felt today. The artificial borders drawn during colonisation ignored ethnic and cultural divisions, leading to tensions and conflicts that persist. From the Rwandan genocide to struggles in the Sudan, many modern issues can be traced back to colonial era decisions. Economically, Africa remains dependent on exporting raw materials, a pattern established during colonisation. This dependency has made it challenging for African nations to build strong, self-sufficient economies. Culturally, European languages and systems are still dominant in many African countries. While these influences have created opportunities, they've also overshadowed indigenous traditions. The scramble for Africa then was a period of exploitation, upheaval and transformation that reshaped the continent. While it brought some changes such as railways and Western education, the overall impact was devastating for African societies. Today, Africa continues to grapple with the legacy of colonisation, striving to overcome the challenges left behind and reclaim its identity. If you found this exploration insightful, please like and share this video. Don't forget to subscribe for more dives into history, and let us know in the comments what you think and what the most important lesson we can learn from the scramble for Africa is. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you at the next video.